I always wanted to do property. That was always like the end goal. It wasn't, looking back now, it wasn't the best deal in the world, but my master plan was that I'll get the first one. I was reaching out to landlords, reaching out to agents, all of this stuff. No one would speak to me. And I was like, oh man. I guess I had no track record. I was definitely saying all the wrong things as well. Where did that conversation go wrong? Sort of thing. 3-4 months had passed and I had nothing to sort of so got my first deal under my belt. You know, all these Instagram gurus and guys on YouTube, they sort of tell you how to get your first deal, but they don't tell you what to do once you've got the keys. I literally got my first unit, and then I was like, right, £1,000 a month, let's go. I do remember getting my first booking and I was like, oh my gosh, like this thing actually works. Like, but I hadn't sort of worked out the numbers properly, and I didn't know about nightly rates and all of these things. You know, I was expecting to be making like £1,000 per unit. Like what's going on? I was like, yeah, this isn't sustainable. I was having to pay the landlord out of my own pocket some month, and I was really struggling with it, and I was debating like giving up with everything. I was just getting like bad reviews and stuff like this, fully debating like just packing everything up in. And then I came across yourself, GrowYourBnb, and they all literally sang your praises, and I was like, right, this is the guy that I want to work with. So I was just digging myself deeper and deeper in the hole, but I was like, right, I'm gonna give it one last try. If this thing doesn't work with GrowYourBnB with yourself, then you know I'm gonna pack things in.
A couple of bookings that you think, oh my god, that's been great.
Good, like in total it was a good like 30-40k.
Welcome back to another GrowYourBnB video, and I have a very special guest and a client of mine here. Firstly, welcome to the video, pal.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, Piers.
Yeah, thank you for taking time out and actually doing this. And yeah, it's been a long time coming, because we worked with you nearly like 7 months ago, didn't we?
Yeah, it's been a little while and a lot has happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, today's video, I think people will love to know your growth. People would love to understand what you're doing, also your challenges and everything that you've gone through. As you know, you've only been in the business, what, 12 months? Yeah,
just over 12 months now.
Look, firstly, let's introduce yourself. So who are you? What do you do?
So my name's Joel, or Property Solutions by JB on Instagram, and I'm an engineer by day, but I also run a property company, a serviced accommodation company by night, I like to say.
Wow, so you're still on a full-time employment while you're running this business. So let's talk about how many units are you in at the moment then?
So we've currently got 8 units under management at the moment, with more in the pipeline.
How amazing. How amazing. Yeah. So you've got 8 units that you're managing, or you've got it under your portfolio, then also have a full-time job that you're managing. So I think this video, loads of people watching this video are probably looking to do that. So how do you manage everything, and how did it all start for you? Let's go right back.
Okay, yeah. I always knew I wanted to sort of get started in property.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what route to take, and hindsight is a wonderful thing. Looking back now, I probably wouldn't have made the same decision, but I actually bought my first property, which was a brand new build flat, a 2-bedroom flat to live in. Looking back now, massive waste of money, probably wouldn't have done that now, but that's what I did, and that sort of left me with no more sort of, or minimal savings, let's say. So I've always been sort of entrepreneurial, even though I went down the engineering route. I wanted to do something different. I've tried a few different things over the years, like forex trading and drop shipping businesses, but I was like, right, I always wanted to do property. That was always like the end goal, but I also always thought you need a lot of money to get started in property. I'd recently just started a new job where I was working from home a lot, and I was like, right, this is the opportunity to start something. I've got a bit of, you know, free time. So I was doing my research, as everyone does, on social media and YouTube and all of these things, and I came across this strategy called rent to rent, and I was like, this seems interesting. I want to know more. Started watching YouTube videos, you know, the conventional route that everyone does.
Everyone goes through. Right now, people are watching this video for that. Right? It's true though.
Yeah, full circle moment.
Absolutely, years back. So okay, so you're basically educating yourself.
Exactly, yeah. And so I came across 2 sort of rent to rent strategies, which were rent to HMO and rent to serviced accommodation. And initially I thought, oh, rent to serviced accommodation, that sounds like a lot of moving parts and, you know, guests and clients and all of this stuff, and I'm still working full time. There's no way I'm gonna have time to manage all of this. So my initial thoughts were to do rent to HMO, so HMO, which is housing of multiple occupants.
Yeah.
And I live in Bristol as well, so there's lots of, I actually used to live in a HMO myself, so I was like, HMO works great here, like I know it works, you know, I've been through the system myself, let's do that. So I bought a course for rent to HMO, and I was like, right, let's go and get my first HMO. So I was reaching out to landlords, reaching out to agents, all of this stuff. No one would speak to me. And I was like, oh man, yeah, I had no experience.
Why would that be?
I guess I had no track record. I was definitely saying all the wrong things as well. Looking back now, you know, are you open to a company let and all of these things. And yeah, no, agents wouldn't talk to me, and landlords just wouldn't sort of trust me. So this went on for a good like 3 to 4 months.
Yeah.
So literally like hundreds of no's, and it got to the point where I was feeling a bit disheartened, and I was like, oh man. And with HMOs as well, it needs to you can only really operate with 5 beds plus, because the profit margins come. Yeah, the profit margins only really come from that 5th bedroom upwards. So I felt like I'd sort of reached out to all the properties of fit in my target area, and I was like, oh man, like what am I gonna do now?
Yeah.
But it was a good experience at the same time, because I was perfecting my script, I was understanding the sorts of questions that these agents and these landlords ask, and I was asking myself after every no, I was like going back to the script and thinking like, where did that conversation go wrong, sort of thing. So I didn't know it at the time, but I was improving my confidence as well, and the way I was presenting myself to these people. Then I made the decision to look into serviced accommodation. I was like, right, HMOs, you know, it looks okay, but I came across one YouTube video and they were talking about like systemizing your SA, and I was like, okay, that doesn't seem too bad. Once it's systemized, it doesn't sound like it's going to take a lot of my time. So I was like, let me dive, and there's a bigger stock of properties as well, because you can do, you know, 1 beds, 2 beds, all the way up. You can even do a HMO as a serviced accommodation, which I now have. So I was like, right, let me dive into this. So I didn't buy a course this time. I was like, right, I've already spent money here, let me just, you know, find a few YouTube videos and dive in. So literally the exact same story, outreaching landlords, outreaching agents, and no one would talk to me. So I was like, oh man, like this is like getting a bit painful now, you know. 3-4 months had passed and I had nothing to sort of show for it. So I ended up paying I was reaching out to deal sources at the time as well, and I ended up actually paying for my first deal. It wasn't, looking back now, it wasn't the best deal in the world, but my master plan was that I'll get the first one and I'll have that as a bit of a track record for the next set of landlords that I talk to. So got my first deal under my belt. Again, you know, all these Instagram gurus and guys on YouTube, they sort of tell you how to get your first deal, but they don't tell you what to do once you've got the keys. Yeah, and that's the exact situation that I was in. I literally got my first unit, and then I was like, right, £1,000 a month, let's go.
Let's make that profit.
And that's not what happened. I got the unit in August last year, peak summertime. You know, I just posted it on booking.com and Airbnb, as the gurus tell you to do, and the bookings were coming in because it was prime time, summertime. It wasn't the most profitable thing in the world, but I do remember getting my first booking and I was like, oh my gosh, like this thing actually works, like someone's actually paying me money now. But I hadn't sort of worked out the numbers properly, and I didn't know about nightly rates and all of these things. So I somehow managed to like worm my way all the way up to December, not very profitably, but you know, it was sort of managing to pay for itself. And then I was like, right, you know, time to get my next unit. And started the outreach process all over again, and I used my first unit as leverage for the next set of landlords that I spoke to, and I actually managed to source my my next unit myself without having to go through a deal source or anything, which was, and
that was purely because you had something going on, right? So you were taking that as a part of your strategy, which was, I've now got something I can tell and talk about it to other landlords and letting agents.
Exactly, because from my first unit I was able to gain a reference from the landlord, for example, and say to other landlords, look, this landlord's very happy with the work that I'm doing. you know, there's no reason you shouldn't want to work with me as well. And that's exactly what I did. I took on so the first unit was a 2-bedroom apartment, which I made a load of mistakes with. And then I ended up taking on a second unit, which was a 5-bedroom house.
Yeah.
So that was in December. And then January, February came, which is notorious sort of serviced accommodation low season. And the bookings just dried up. And I was like, oh man, like what's, you know, I was expecting to be making like £5,000 a month, £1,000 per unit. Like what's going on? So I tried to push on a little bit. And I was like, yeah, this isn't sustainable. I was having to pay the landlord out of my own pocket some month, and I was really struggling with it. And I was debating like giving up with everything. I was just getting like bad reviews and stuff like this. And I was fully debating like just packing everything up in. And then I came across yourself, GrowYourBnb, and I think I reached out to you. I done a bit of due diligence actually. I went on like your Trustpilot. I actually reached out to 3 different people who had given you reviews on Trustpilot, and they all literally sang your praises. And I was like, right, this is the guy that I want to work with. Let's do this. And already at this point, I was already in the hole a little bit. You know, I'd paid the deal sourcer deposit to rent for 2 units now, and I'd been having to pay landlords out of my own pocket for the rent and the bills, etc. as well. So I was just digging myself deeper and deeper in the hole. But I was like, right, I'm gonna give it one last try. If this thing doesn't work with GrowYourBnB with yourself, then you know I'm gonna pack things in. Pack things up. Let
me just ask you. Actually, I didn't know that you reached out to obviously those people through Trustpilot. So and this is what I send you guys, like anyone who worked with me, I send that link, don't I? I normally send you guys the link, and I'd be like, hey, look, you know, this is the reviews I've got, and that's purely because I want to be able to make people understand there's a lot more than, you know, like just getting a service from us. Like I've truly realized that, you know, although we're like growth partners for you and many clients I've worked with, eventually came up to realize that people still have that little doubt in places of like you've already spent on deal sourcer, you've lost about, well, in hindsight you were about to lose your 3k, you then have bad months, so you're now already thinking, and the amount of conversation I have daily with people who are sitting and watching my video and going, okay, well, we want to work with Piers, but oh my god, I can't pay like next week's rent. Or there's people who's going, I'm just about to add another unit, but then I can't pay you. And I'm like, why are you going and scaling your unit when you haven't fixed the main problem, which is how to get booking, right? So what happened then? So obviously you reached out to us, we had a chat, and at that point, 2 units.
So I still had the 2 units. Was debating just giving everything up and just handing them back. And then I reached out to yourself, and I kind of explained like, look, I can't pay the full fee right now. But you reached out. I remember I was sitting in the car opposite the laundrette, waiting for. We were still like doing our own linens at this time and doing everything wrong.
It was kind of late evening as well.
It was late. I remember I was really stressed in my car, and I was texting you. I was like, look, I just can't afford the whole thing. And you were very understanding actually, and you were like, look, we can set up some sort of plan and make this work. So I was like, let's do it. So I think I sent across the first payment, and then the work began. You and your team reached out and started to do everything you did with my business.
Absolutely. And let's go back to, there's a couple of things I've realized here. Your journey of you saying like, I want to pack up, like, do you think at that point it was like really financial wise, how much were you kind of down like after paying that 3k, and how much was the business, because you've already set up all the units as well? So if you packed it all up, don't get me wrong, you will be able to sell some of your furnitures and you would have made some of your investment back, but what would it look like for you in terms of losses?
It would have been all of my savings. So I can tell you about the first deal. It was a 2-bedroom apartment in Bristol. I think the rent was about 1,500. So first month's rent and deposit and the sourcing fee. It came fully furnished, that one, but I remember it's about 8k all in roughly, because we spent a bit of money on the property, and then also company set up as well. That takes around £1,000. And then my second unit was a 5-bedroom in Bristol, which we were paying about 2.5k for. Managed to negotiate a slightly lower deposit on that one, but with furnishings it was probably about 3-4k all in. So I was about 50 15k all in at this point.
all in.
Yeah, which, you know, I was debating cutting my losses because I couldn't, you know, I was having to maintain the rents and everything like that, so I couldn't maintain everything, you know, the way it was going. And obviously I started the business to make money as well, not lose money.
And
So
don't get me wrong, a lot of people do, and I genuinely feel frustrated when I speak to somebody and I'm like, look, genuinely saying this is how the process works, and actually when there is no brand or sales plan in your business, you should be focusing on that, because that's what's going to make you money. Right, the property scaling can be done every month if you know what you're doing. But also at some point as a business owner, I think what you decided to do is enough's enough. I need to take one more leap to understand how to get bookings. So obviously we started working. We do what we do for you guys. So what did you start seeing in terms of your brand?
Well, I didn't really have a brand before I started working with you guys. Sorry, one thing I also want to mention is that I think like social media, and there's a lot of what I call cowboy people out there. So that's why I think I probably found it really hard to not trust you, but find someone reputable at the start, because there's I came across like a lot of mentors and stuff, but when you looked into them, like they had no track record for results. So, and I've heard you hear the horror stories all the time. Do your due diligence on the person that you're going to work with.
I love that. And by you saying this, hopefully it saves someone's £3,000, because we've both seen it. I've seen thousands of people who've invested £3,000, done nothing because they haven't got all the tools, support and knowledge to go and deliver what you've done. So I agree. So at that time, obviously I didn't know, but you've already done your DD, so you were quite confident. And also I was very flexible around, okay, this is what we're going to achieve, this is how we're going to achieve, and I walked you through. So obviously working with us, what was it like firstly?
It was really, really smooth actually. Like you guys sort of handled everything at the start. It was a case of you guys went into the business and done everything. You
were basically your employee. I sometimes say that.
You literally went in with your team and you changed my listings. You boosted my listings. You edited all my photos, changed the descriptions, and you created a brand for me essentially, because I actually didn't have a brand before I started working with you guys. And since then we've changed company names to just support the brand, but I didn't know anything about branding or how important it was. I
say I was your employee, I do want to make this point. We did the work for you. It wasn't like let's give you the knowledge and try this later. Like it wasn't that. We physically went in and did the work. Like in terms of our communication, what did you feel? I came in every single week with a call. So did all my client support as well as our WhatsApp.
Yeah, your team were pretty much available like 24/7. And obviously yourself, we had the weekly calls every week where it was really good because you went in and done the work and then you explained what you guys were doing. So it wasn't like I was left in the dark and I was like, oh, all these results, but I didn't know how. You went in, you done the work, got the results, and then explained step by step everything you were doing. So it was it was amazing to see. And yourself and your team as well. I'm still actually really good friends with one of your team,
Ridwan.
We still talk all the time. So we bounce off each other. He's got his own sort of portfolio that he's running as well, and he's doing this thing in London sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Your team are always available on
WhatsApp. This is where I think a couple of things that I want to ask you. So you said earlier you had the knowledge because I came in and delivered our call and I said to you why I did what I did and why that would impact your business. So in a hindsight now, fast forward you are 8 months later after working with us, you have 2 units when we first worked. How many units have you got now?
So I've got 8 units now.
8 units. So you've gone from giving up, like no knowledge of how to get bookings, to now you've gone 8 units. So this is where I think it would be amazing to understand what changed your perspective now compared to what then?
First of all, the work that you guys did and taught me actually helped me create a profitable business.
Yeah.
So we went from a business which was losing money every month to a business which is now making money. And my goal was always to, scale to a decent size. So all of the profits, we were now in a position to start reinvesting profits rather than, just throwing more money at the thing and hoping for the best. And having confidence that actually when we take on a unit now, we know how to make it profitable through the things that you and your team taught me. So that's how we've continued to continue to scale. Like, as you mentioned, we knew how to source units. We didn't know how to cash flow them. We didn't know how to market them. We didn't know how to impress our brand on them. So through the work that we did together, and essentially those are all the things to make a unit profitable. That's exactly what we did. We went in and made profitable units and reinvested and continue to scale.
Absolutely. And that, mate, congratulations. Honestly, I can't be any pleased for you because of this exact reason what I've said when we first, hopefully I've got recordings of our calls and maybe we can put some clips on it, but I had to convince you why it's so important to build a brand and forget about scaling. And it was for your benefit, right? We're sitting, bless you, mate.
Thank you.
we were sitting at that position, and I always say to my clients, I was sitting in that position to help you guys grow your business, and this is why we're called GrowYourBnb, right? Because we're doing the work for you. We are effectively your growth partners. So look, I want to change this topic a little bit. People watching this has understood a bit of your journey with us and stuff, but as an entrepreneur, you've got a lot to worry as well, because what you were just saying, you're working full time, right? You've got 8 units. There must be people watching this video going, right, that's not possible, right? So let's break it down to a couple of things I want to talk about. I want to talk about health first, because I've always realized when someone focuses on business too much, you've started messing up with your health. So talk to me about your importance for health and what you're doing about it.
So I've always been a very sort of health conscious guy. Because I don't know, do you know, have you ever seen Diary of a CEO?
Yeah, Diary
Stephen
of
Bartlett.
Yeah.
So he started saying this thing on his podcast, and it really resonates with me. He's like, my health sits on this glass, everything in my life sits on this glass table called my health. And without your health, you have nothing. Like, I've got a slight cold. You might be able to hear it in my voice, but if I was, any worse, I'd be in bed right now. I wouldn't even be able to work on the business or anything. So for me, sort of health is number 2. God first. So for health wise, but business and entrepreneurship does take sacrifice, and it is hard work, for sure. So I'd say my social life has taken a bit of a hit, but one thing I never sacrifice is my health. So I do train, and I'm very extreme with it. It doesn't purely because I like to push myself. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend how I do things to everyone. But you do need to. I would say you do need to make a priority. So I do train most days, 6 if not 7 days a week, which is I do eat I try and eat very healthily in terms of whole foods only. I've cut out sort of processed foods and fast foods. So
I know, I interviewed someone last week, 2 guys in my channel, and they said they're literally living on fast food at the moment because they've gone from 0 to I think 20 units in 100 days, and they're like, wow, they just don't have time at the moment to go in and make food and focus on health. So this is why I asked you this question about, talk to me about your health. So you're saying to me, while you've had all these challenges of not being able to scale your business to then being able to scale the business, being in losses and everything you've gone through, you've always keep consistent with your health.
Because my reason why is, first of all, I'm a massive advocate for sort of pushing yourself, and I want to see what I'm capable of. But number 2, if as I've mentioned, if you do get sick, your business stops. Like, you 100%. Can't, there's nothing you can do at that point. So for me, health has always been a big thing. And for the fast food thing, I don't actually cook myself anymore. There's meal prep services that you can use, which I literally get a delivery every Sunday for meals pre-made that I just stick in the microwave or oven and heat them up, and I know that they're healthily made.
And it's ready for you to
eat. Ready to eat. So I don't need to spend any time cooking or meal prepping or anything like that, and I'm still having sort of healthy foods. So that's another way around, the fast food.
Optimize it. And I feel like that you've taken that mindset into the business, right? Because of what you just said, you wanted to push limits on what you can achieve, and that's what you're you're doing right now with your business, right? And you know that person could have easily gone, actually some people would go, oh, it's not working, let me just, and I know so many people, like I have loads of leads who spoke to me last year, we've spoken to them again this year, and they've gone, Piers, actually we've given the units back and we've stopped it. And I'm like, okay, fair play, if that's what you wanted to do and take a kind of step back and come back again with a better strategy in place, absolutely. But no, it's so exciting, and this is why like I like to ask about health, because for me at the moment I do PT, I do Blaze, but my food, I like going to the kitchen and I like to become creative with my food. So I'm always, you know, after my finished call, I want to spend a bit of time in kitchen playing some music and just see what I can do with my food, right? And that's like joy for me, because that gets me out of my working routine. Because I remember when I was working loads of hours, I was ending up just going, okay, well, I'm sat in desk, I'm in computer, I'm speaking to clients, I'm speaking to new leads, I'm delivering, and I haven't really focused on my health. I wouldn't say I've optimized everything, but I like to say that I enjoy being in kitchen. But I train like 5 days a week now with my PT, I've got HIIT training and stuff like that. So yeah, I think people watching this, I think there's no right to wrong thing, it's just what works for you.
Exactly.
And I think it's also the season of life, because what you're doing now isn't going to be what you're going to do in a year's time if your business goes into a direction where you're at the moment paying for meal preps and not being worried about, you know, effectively you're getting time back because you don't have to spend time in kitchen, but you're having the food that you like and enjoy, right?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Okay, so that's kind of a bit of health. Let's talk about a bit of wealth. Now this comes to, I think, the business that you've got at the moment. There's two things I want to ask actually. One, a booking that you remember going, oh my god, like this is what I know. You posted something yesterday on your social, but let's talk about a couple of bookings that you think, oh my god, that's been great.
Yeah, so first of all, I post everything on my Instagram. My mum tells me off from time to time. She's like, you shouldn't post that, you know, but I'm just an open book, honestly. So I remember a booking that I was like, wow, on my 5-bedroom, so the second unit that I mentioned earlier. The first time we got a long-term booking on that unit, it was a booking for just under 6k, maybe 5k per month for I think it was like 6 or 7 months.
Ooh, so
I remember that.
Yeah,
it was a good, like, in total it was a good like 30-40k, but I remember the first month's payment like hitting my account. And I was like, because that's a good chunk more than my salary at the time as well from my job.
Yeah, for sure.
I was like, this thing's working now, you know. We're going now.
How many months was it after we did the work that you landed that booking?
That booking started in March.
Oh wow! So it was while we worked then.
I think I'm pretty sure it was while.
So it was while we worked. Oh my god! So I didn't know that it lasted that 6-7 months. How did that feel? Like, I know you were saying that it was just but waking up every month really in time and going, oh my god, we've been paid for a whole month. You didn't have to do management. No check-in, no check-outs. You know, guessing.
It was honestly a relief, to be honest, because as I'd mentioned, you know, we'd gone from a business which was unsustainable, losing money every month, to a business now which I didn't have to worry about. You know, it's paying for itself at this point. The rent was covered, the bills were covered, and some. I was in a position to start looking at, you know, reinvesting profits. And it was just a massive relief. You know, I'd went from a stressed business owner to one who is now, you know, making a bit of money and with a few options. And just to mention that you're talking about my post the other day, you know, we passed 100k in revenue recently, which I shared on my Instagram, which
and that was over the terms, but you know, some units you've only added, so it hasn't really generated you any income. But, you know, people might think, oh, 100k on 8 units, but it's not 100k on 8 units. It's 100 over the time when you've scaled from 1, 2, 3, and today to 8 units and growing. About 60% of that revenue is literally from the last three or so months. Actually, because that's when we've managed to take on, you know, the remaining units. So hey, congratulations. Look, I can't be any happier from where we can sit down today and say you were nearly 15k down, not actually down, but you were about to go down, to actually doing 100k in revenue. You know, it really makes it all worthwhile. And you know, let's talk about the ROI, because not only you've made the money back you paid me, but you've got infinite return. at the moment,
Yeah.
what you've learned from us.
Obviously, at the time, it wasn't even managing to cover the cost. We weren't even breaking even
Yeah.
at the time. And then obviously, so you guys came in, you introduced a strategy to us, which we still implement to this day, by the way. As I mentioned, that first sort of long-term booking that we secured was enough to sustain 2 units.
Right.
And then obviously we implemented the strategy on both units at the same time, and both were turning on a nice profit. So it's really literally, as you mentioned, an infinite return on investment if you really sit down and work it out.
Okay. And
which is amazing.
And that not a lot of company can show you this process, and that's this is why it's no longer for you, oh my god, I paid Piers and company and we've had a bit of work done, and you've actually gone in and replicated that in as many units as possible. And like yourself, I've got clients who's gone from 0 to came to work with us with 2 units, struggling, and today they're operating with, I think, just over 60 units on management and rent to rent. And they're like, Piers, we're replicating everything you've done, taking on units, doing it. We're taking people who are underperforming, they're taking management units under their belt now and scaling. And that's something that you can now explore if you'd like.
Which I've done. I've done this.
Absolutely.
We've got a couple units under management as well for people who don't understand how to make their units profitable and cash flow. And I've also actually got 2 people I'm mentoring at the moment also. I'm using everything that you taught me to go in. One of them was literally one of those people who took on a unit, wasn't able to make it profitable, quit, gave the unit back, and now they're trying to reignite their business, which I'm helping them to do.
And then you're doing it right now with the right information, the right knowledge, and actually being able to do that. Mate, I'm so pleased that I know this is only like a year into this, but I can't wait. This is where I work with loads of clients. I spoke to them in even worked with them in 2019. Today they've come in and we've helped them build their systems, processes, people, and everything to do with it. But it's nice to see people grow in the most effective way and actually sustain in a way. So if anything goes wrong, you're already creative enough now to do, I'm going to do that. So if it's going to be quite a month, you know exactly what strategy to take in. A lot of people don't know that. They're going to sit down winter sitting, we haven't got any booking, we're losing money.
That's it. It's a slow month.
There's people who's going to say it's slow month, but for you it's like, well, that strategy doesn't work, I'm going to focus on that, or if that doesn't work, I'm going to focus on that. So you've got a lot of tool in your toolbox that you can use. So look, okay, so let's talk about a bit of love and happiness, because that they come together, right? So
100%.
I think there's some special news happening this weekend for you. You've actually taken time out to do this video, so I really appreciate it. What is that? What does it look like for you?
No worries at all. And I'm actually getting married this Saturday. Again, I'm able to, and it's just amazing because I'm able to go away and actually get married and not be too worried that things are gonna sort of fall over whilst I'm away, because of the strategy and the way that we operate the business. So even just having the freedom to do that is amazing, honestly.
Well, firstly, congratulations, because when you said that, I was like, thank you so much for taking that. It's Tuesday today, right? You're getting married on Saturday. There's loads of other things you should be doing. You've come in and done this video. No, congratulations. So look, again, you're now getting married, but actually in a hindsight, if you think about the challenges and the financial issue you were about to have a couple of months ago, this probably wouldn't be as possible for you with the mindset that you would be.
I wouldn't be in the frame of mind that I'm in currently. When they say not to let your external affect your mood, but when things aren't going well, it's a lot harder for sure to maintain your sort of inner peace, or focus on other things. When things are going well, it allows you to obviously focus on the business and scaling up and stuff like that, but I always call it putting out fires. When I was in that period, I was just firefighting constantly, dealing with this issue, then that issue, then this thing, then that thing. But now we've got the business a bit more systemized. I'm able to focus on the growth of the business rather than dealing with the operational side and issues here and there and everything like that. So it's amazing. Feeling very grateful for the position that I'm currently in.
Oh, mate, love that. And what makes you happy?
First of all, you know, being with my family, my wife to be, my mum as well. I think, you know, your family's so important.
Absolutely.
As I get older, you know, that becomes more and more sort of obvious to me. So, and just having the freedom, you can get sucked into, you know, everyday life, and dealing with issues here and there. And so just having the freedom and the space, the mental real estate to, you know, be with my family and actually be present in, you know, what they're saying and not have my mind drag me elsewhere, is a great position.
Oh, mate, absolutely. And you've probably seen it. Everything I do on social mostly is around my mum and dad. I've retired them. I give them everything they want. You know, I go and do their weekly shopping every single week and spend money and that gives me satisfaction to come in back in my desk and go, let's do it all over again because it's all worthwhile. You know what? I think that's when you said about, you know, there's loads of things that makes you happy, but you choosing your family, which most people will say, and it depends on what season of life you are. You know, it all changes. Obviously, you'll get married and you've got future life and all that kind of stuff. But it's so exciting to sit here today. And a client of mine where we didn't have any relationship, you knew me from online. You've probably seen a couple of videos. You've probably seen, and then you've gone in and come and worked with us. And today to sit down, you know, 7-8 months later to see what you've achieved for me is, you know, secretly is a very proud moment as a part of your business growth partner.
It's actually a really proud moment for myself as well, because as you mentioned, when I was first starting out, I was watching your videos how to like market, and I was just trying anything to make it work. So I actually used to watch interviews like this and see what you've done for other people. So the fact I'm now on here is actually a massive sort of privilege, and I'm hugely sort of appreciative to yourself as well. First of all, for the opportunity, for everything you've done in the business, and to be on here actually.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And you know what? I think it's only fair to say that it's a working partner. Like, you had your business. My job was to just show you how to get bookings and build your brand, so then you will never worry about how to get bookings, right? And become as creative as you like. I think, look, we're coming towards the end of this video. There's a couple of things I always like to ask. There's people watching this video who's probably watching until now are thinking, I'm not sure about peers. Like, I don't, and after dead as well, which is again, you know, a lot of people again might be in your position where they're in the last penny, which you know what it's like in the game. 1 or 2 bad months, you are pretty screwed. So what would you say to them?
I'd say to them, first of all, the only time you fail is when you give up. So keep going and keep finding a way to make it work, but also try and work smarter, not harder. And for me at the time, and probably for you, that looks like working with peers and GrowYourBnb. They came in and completely transformed my business, turned us from a business which was, you know, on the way to, I was on the way to packing into a business which is now growing healthily month on month, making good returns. So, you know, take that last leap of faith if it is like it was for me, and I've never looked back, honestly.
No, you haven't. Yeah, mate. I mean, I appreciate you saying these words, and I think, you know, also my team always watches all our client interview, and I always give credit to my team because I wouldn't be where I am with the team and the people I have in the business. But also it takes a lot to build a good people, right, as a leader of the business. And I think, you know, off camera, we're probably going to talk about this for your business now, because you're now going into that position where a lot of optimization, a lot of systems, processes, and people will come in and hopefully grow into that, you know, giant of a business where you can effectively have onboarding systems and everything that you're already doing, which I'm pretty sure you already have, but it'll be great to replace it with some people in the business as well, right? So look, what's next for you?
If you're close to me at the moment, you'll hear these words coming out of my mouth all the time, but it's more units.
Love
it's
that.
scale as fast as possible. That's what we're pushing for now. As I've mentioned, we know how to source units, we know how to cash flow units, we know how to make them profitable now, thanks to you. So now it's just scale and take this thing to the moon.
Love that, mate. Well, listen, thank you you so much for taking time out, doing this amazing interview, giving people loads of knowledge around your journey, what can be challenging, why you did what you did, and more importantly, but being honest about everything you've had in your journey, because this is what's going to help someone go, actually, Joel did it, I should be able to achieve that same thing. And I say this to people,
100%.
like, if I've done it, right, then you can do it too. There's no difference. All it is to understand the framework and actually stay on that framework to deliver something. So yeah, I really
100%.
appreciate you taking this time out, doing this video, and yeah, I can't wait for you to see and grow in near future.
No worries at all, and big thank you to you and your team for what you've done, and a massive thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.